Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is August 2nd, and today we're looking at this moisture moving across Oregon here, continuing some of these thunderstorms across the region. That cloud cover is going to keep the temperatures down across much of eastern Oregon today and may even affect temperatures through some of eastern Washington as well. You can see the next system coming through the Gulf of Alaska here. It's going to be impacting the Pacific Northwest today, tomorrow, and Thursday. We'll check out to see just how much precipitation we can expect from this event. Looks like BC is going to be the main winner out of that. You can see Tropical Storm Frank down here will be downgraded to a depression here shortly. Not really a threat to anywhere on land. And you can see the nice trade winds across the Hawaiian Islands going on here. So looking at the visible satellite imagery, we had a nice marine push yesterday. You can see the low clouds banked all the way up against the Cascades here. You can see them starting to burn off a bit for this morning. You'll probably see sunshine across much of the region here, except for portions of Oregon where you got these mid and high level clouds here with some of this thunderstorm activity as we go. Here's a Corremios Creek fire here down the Okanagan River Valley, and you can see it kicking off some smoke even here on this visible satellite imagery here. We'll take a look at the models to see where some of this forest fire smoke is going. You can see the red flag warnings across Pacific Northwest as we get into forest fire season here in August. Be careful out there. All it takes is a spark to kick off one of those forest fires. Here's Seattle, Tacoma, 81 degrees yesterday, well down from the 95 the previous 3 days. We set that all-time daily record high for the July 31st of 95. And we're going to cool down even a few more degrees today with this low cloud cover this morning. Here's Pendleton, Oregon, 96, relative cool down from Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. They had 108, 111, and 110, all three daily record highs for Pendleton. So very impressive heat wave that we just went through there. Now here we're looking at 850 millibars, 5,000 feet here. You can see we are a little bit above average still today aloft, but you can see this system kind of roll through British Columbia here and really keep us cool through Thursday and Friday across the region here. And again, we'll look at precipitation totals from this system here in a moment. Now watch as we go later on into the weekend here. It comes Saturday, we start to warm up aloft again a bit. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, as this upper level low is formed here, we have kind of a thermal trough bringing some heat aloft up across Pacific Northwest. And then you'll notice this kind of ejects across Pacific Northwest. We'll watch to see if that kicks off any convection across western portions of Oregon, Washington, British Columbia here. But these systems can be very hard to predict on just where they're going to produce some convection. So we'll continue to watch that day by day. But look at the trough the GFS carves out across Alaska and the Gulf of Alaska as we go through the extended forecast here. This is going to be a big impact on our forecast here for the extended. If this trough sits out here and amplifies, it could build a ridge across the area, but it's more progressive like it shows here. This would definitely keep us in a cooler pattern through mid-August. We'll continue to monitor that. Here's the European. I wanted to show you this for the timing of the precipitation here as we go through Wednesday night. You can kind of see this move across the region here and through Thursday morning. You see mainly Seattle northward. It's probably going to be the winners here for precipitation totals as BC gets a good shot of precipitation here. It's something. It'll help squelch some of the fires up there a bit as long as there's not much lightning associated with it. But you can see as we go through the extended here, the monsoon moisture kicking across California, Nevada, Arizona, and Utah, and another weak system moves through British Columbia here across the weekend before we warm up a bit as we go through early to mid next week before a system kind of ejects across the region here. Now watch this on Wednesday. You can kind of see this precipitation come up the Washington coast, move across western Washington into British Columbia here. This could have some convection associated with it. We'll continue to monitor that little impulse there. Now, taking a look at 5,000 feet European, this is North American look at things. There's Alaska, Washington, Oregon here. Now, you can see here goes Wednesday and Thursday's system, that chillier air aloft, bringing that system across the region here. Then as we go on in through this weekend, you can see that heat build up again into British Columbia here. So we're going to warm up for a couple days here before we bring another marine layer back into the region here as we go through early to mid next week. And that would be that little impulse of that system that could spark some convection across Pacific Northwest as well. But in the extent of the European here, it's kind of showing that same thing as the GFS, this trop dropping down across the Gulf of Alaska here in Alaska. And depending on if this amplifies and it builds a ridge, or if it's more progressive and really brings us some onshore flow, we'll continue to monitor what's going to happen with that troughing out there. Now, this is the European here. This kind of shows the system swinging down Wednesday, Thursday, and then another weak trough goes through British Columbia before we start to build a ridge up a little bit again here. It's going to warm us up for a couple, 2-3 days before this impulse moves across Pacific Northwest, and that's the one I'm watching for possibly some convection mid next week. And then there's that next trough digging out across Alaska here. We'll see if this amplifies or if it's more progressive at a later date. Now, Tri-Cities, you can see the cool down coming through the system as the system swings through Thursday and Friday. Then we bounce back these temperatures again through early to mid next week. Here's Seattle, Tacoma. You can see the cool down here for Thursday. Look at some of the highs down into the low 70s, maybe around 70 before we bounce back into the 80s here for possibly Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And we'll then bring another marine influence in here as we go on in through midweek and possibly some convection there. We'll continue to monitor that one as we get closer. Here's Portland. You can see the cool down and the bounce back also later this week and into next week. Now, this is looking at the trend of precipitation for SeaTac. You can see on the night of July 29th, it called for about 1/10 of an inch for SeaTac. Now, it's been downgrading this amount as we get closer to the event here, and this last run only had a couple hundredths of an inch for SeaTac. So barely enough to wet the ground there, but it is something, I guess, and the clouds will keep us cooler than definitely what we had during that heat wave, so it'll be a much welcomed relief. This is for Snohomish County, Painfield. You can see as you go north of Seattle, look at this, couple hundredths of an inch of rain, or a couple tenths of an inch of rain are not out of the question there for Everett. And as we go towards Portland, you can see barely showing up, just 1/100th of an inch, maybe a trace or just enough to wet the pavement down there. As you go towards Vancouver, you might get a couple tenths of an inch of rain as well. Same thing with Bellingham. So the further north you go from Seattle, the better your chances of precip as we go through Wednesday night on in through Thursday morning. It's kind of showing the fire weather outlook. You can see the elevated fire danger. We did have a fire breakout near Vantage, Washington yesterday, near I-90 and the Columbia River there. So it is that time of year where these fires get going, and you see the isolated dry thunderstorm potential here across Oregon and portions of Idaho and all the way through Yellowstone Park there. You can see tomorrow elevated fire danger, eastern Washington, Oregon, isolated dry again for Oregon as well. Here's the surface smoke on the HUR. You can see that Karamios Creek fire here, Okanagan River Valley, kicking off quite a bit of smoke here. You can see the McKinney fire and maybe another fire or two down here in southern Oregon. I'm not sure, but looks like it's not kicking off near as much smoke as it previously was, but you can still see Oregon has some of that smoke, especially mixed around in those thunderstorms and that cloud activity out there. But yeah, you can see that fire there for Vantage near the Columbia River and I-90 there yesterday. So it is that time of year. This is 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. This is including that warm up we're going to get later through this weekend into early next week. Strong monsoon season continues down there for the Southwest, and you can see that signal for below average temperatures for Alaska continue as well. Here's the 6 to 10 day precipitation, kind of highlighting that monsoon down there, and some higher precipitation amounts possibly in Alaska as well. 8 to 14 day, that monsoon not really letting up here, as it kind of showing above average temperatures here as we go through the extent in the Pacific Northwest, but I wouldn't put too much stock in this yet. We have to determine just what that trough is going to do as it comes down out of Alaska. Will it be more progressive and get into the Pacific Northwest, or is it going to hang out and amplify a ridge over us here? So not very high confidence here. We're going to be monitoring that closely as we go here. 8 to 14 day monsoon season. I sound like a broken record there. This is a drought monitor here. You can see we're doing a lot better than we were last year. Washington had extreme and exceptional drought at this time last year, I believe it was, or I think it may be earlier this year. But you can see we still have some exceptional drought across portions of the east slopes of the Cascades of Oregon, and some extreme drought as well. So hopefully some of this precipitation might be taking the edge off of that, as long as we don't kick off too many fires. Now, looking at La Nina, this is sea surface temperature anomalies. So it kind of shows you as far as normal here. You can see across the Central Pacific, we are below normal. That is a classic La Nina pattern here. It continues. And we're probably going to continue that on in through winter and much of winter before we start to bounce back towards neutral conditions. So you can see this is where we measure these La Nina conditions, or as we call them, ENSO, right across the Central Pacific Ocean here, south of Hawaii. And you can see they're plainly below average at this time. This is the IRI, the International Research Institute forecast here. And you can see as we actually go further into La Nina, as we get towards November, December, January here, February, barely into La Nina, and then March, we come out of it and probably into neutral conditions here as we go. But as you can see, we're probably going to spend much of the winter in La Nina conditions here as we go through this season. So that would be the third in a row. Highly unusual, and we'll see how this one plays out. Each La Nina winter is different. So yeah, I mean, enjoy the cool down while it lasts. We're probably going to warm up again a little bit as we go through this weekend, as we saw on in through early next week. And we've got some uncertainty on through the extended here if we're going to be dealing with some nice onshore flow, if we're going to build another ridge, and possibility of some convection as we go through midweek next week coming up here. So we'll continue to monitor that one too. So anyway, we'll do this again tomorrow. Hope you guys are having a good day. Click like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.